to tonight's meeting of the Hand-Eye Supply Curiosity Club. We are your hosts this evening. I am Tobias, and this is Will. Together we have a number of curious and exciting topics to share with you.
As attendees of the Hand-Eye Supply Curiosity Club, you are all now members, provided you adhere to our philosophy.
Ex Curiositas Scientia.
We pledge to learn without prejudice in pursuit of our mutual goal, perpetual noviceship. We admit that it is impossible to know everything about anything, and thus we remain perpetually curious and perpetually novice.
This is our flag and our mascot, Franklin. The lightning bolt represents the receipt of knowledge, the enlightenment of illumination, the resonance of truths understood. It awakens and excites us and makes us hungry for more. And now let's give a warm Curiosity Club welcome to D. Williams of Portland Alternative One.
I don't know why I felt like I was just, that was like a snapshot into like somebody getting ready to play Dungeons and Dragons. So, thank you guys for coming out, and I want to go through some slides. I want to talk about little houses and my little house and my decision to live in a little house. But before we do that, I wanna kind of like get you guys all in the same room with me with a little percussion exercise. And I'm gonna walk over there, and I don't know if that's okay with the filming stuff you're doing. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna have these two rows. You guys are like a team, okay? A team. These two rows, you guys are B team. Back row, thumbs up. C team. We got it. Okay. So you guys have to watch me, and I'm gonna pretend that I'm a conductor. Okay. So A team. Yeah. Come on. Okay. And when we want it to get louder, we're going to go faster. Hands up. Okay, keep that going. B team. When we want it to get louder, we're going to put our B. Okay. C team. Fall flat. Fall flat. Okay, everybody's got their job? Stop. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Stop. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Go. Loud. 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 Stop. Loud. Go to the front again. One more time. Now as I walk by you, you're going to stop. Ready? Up. Loud. 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 Okay. Okay, that's exactly what the windstorm sounds like in my house. It's this rolling action. It's like, before I moved into my house, I didn't realize how the wind and the rain roll across the house. Should we try one more time since you guys are just ready, stand. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. Gotta catch my breath now. Okay. So this is me. You can tell by the haircut. This is when I was in first grade. So I was probably like, what, 6, 7 years old? And I was like you guys, I was curious. I was curious about everything. But mostly I was curious about the woods. When I grew up, I had this dream I was going to live in a tree house. I was going to live inside a tree. I was going to live in a chicken coop. I was going to live in the brambles. We lived on a farm, so I was like, I'll dig out the brambles. I'll have a little cave. I'll live in the crawl space. I was going to live in a lot of different places. And a part of that was because I was curious about, what was going on outside my house when I wasn't outside. I saw possums and porcupines and a lot of cows and lots of birds. But I was like, what is really going on, you know? So my dream was to grow into an adult that would live in the woods, and I would have a secret language with the squirrels. And I would be able to walk through the woods without making a sound, and I would be able to like pull sap out of a tree, you know. I would be able to identify any animal that left tracks in our creek. You know, it was just like all this stuff that I was going to grow into. And the whole idea of being able to kind of like continue down my path of being heroic and courageous and generous and kind, you know, that was going to be a part of the package, you know. So fast forward from this, you know, me, this mini me, to Portland, Oregon 8 years ago. And this is my life. You know, I bought this really cool 1927 bungalow, and I was spending all of my time and my curiosity trying to figure out how to make the pipes not leak. How can I weatherize this window, which was installed in 1927, without actually having to buy a new window? You know, how do I re-charm this house so that I can flip it and actually make a profit on it? You know, how do I make the mortgage? You know, and all the while, this is how I was spending my time. You know, very curious about the nails that are going into the boards. You know, so, you know, how am I being the person I most wanted to grow into being? You know, how am I actualizing Dee Williams? You know, and then at about that time, so this is 8 years ago, I took a trip to Guatemala. Kind of came into contact with how most of the world really lives. And I returned home from that trip, and I didn't fit in my life anymore. All of a sudden, I was working on my house and spending money on my house, and yet the rest of the world goes without food. They go without shelter. They go without crown molding that really pulls the living room together. You know, and at about that same time, I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. So here I am, 40 years old, diagnosed with this horrible, fatal disease. And the question becomes, what happened to that gal that was going to live in a treehouse and learn to like talk to the squirrels? Where did she go? I really liked her, you know. And how do I become that person before I lay myself down to die? And it was actually, this is a human heart cell. This is what each of us have bundled into the interior of our chest at this very moment. That could have been my defibrillator. Don't scare us like that. And at some point, it's going to stop. You know. So how do we move forward from that? My thought was, I needed to keep my job, keep my health insurance, in case I got really sick. I could build a little house, and inside that little house, I'd be free of my mortgage. I'd be free of a lot of my utility bill. I could live in my friend's backyard, even though I hadn't quite picked them out yet. And they didn't know I was researching to find the right neighbors. But somehow I would be able to pull this life together that would look really normal, except for its size and the economy of money that I was spending on it day to day. So I decided to build a little house. And my house is 84 square feet. It's on a utility trailer. It's the next time you get in an elevator, imagine two elevators going up together. The next time you're in your backyard and you have a kiddie pool blown up, imagine two of them. Next time you're eating a bag of chips, imagine a dozen of them. The next time you're going to the bathroom, you look at a roll of toilet paper, imagine that spread out. That's a little more square footage than my house. You know, it's really small, but I figured that way I could be kind of stealthy. You know, I could kind of sneak into my friend's backyard, wouldn't take up too much space. I would be able to find my place, you know, by doing that. So I built my house myself in 2004. I tried to make it as green as possible, and by that, by using my little finger quotes, I hope you guys know that, you know, when I say green, I recognize that building a new structure has an environmental cost. So green structure using, cotton bed insulation and crap I pulled out of the dumpster and whatever I could find when my neighbors weren't looking. I built my house, and it's a little hard to see, but essentially this is my house, and it's 2 feet shorter than the Ford F-250 that's pulling it. It's 14 feet long. My truck was 16 feet long. And that has been my home for the last 8 years. I've been in essentially the same spot for 8 years. And I've got a little spot to cook poorly because I've never been a good cook. I never will be a good cook. But, I've got a little, kitchen of sorts. I've got a place to sleep. I've got a place to go to the bathroom. I don't have running water, so I don't have a shower. I don't have a flushing toilet. I have a composting toilet. And all of this has created a space for me that actually mirrors pretty closely the space that I hope to find when I was in the first grade. When I'm up in my loft, it's not that dissimilar to the treehouse that I always wanted. So I've been able to recreate that moment, for myself. I ended up petitioning a lot of friends and trying to find a space. And ultimately, I ended up in my friends Hugh and Annie's backyard. This is in Olympia, Washington. So Hugh and Annie and their 2 kids live in this house. Rita, Hugh's aunt, who's 90 years old, now 89 years old. She'd probably not like being called 90-year-old. She lives in this giant house. This is the garage, and this the shiniest house of all, mine. And so you get that sense of scale. We share a backyard, and when you think about it, my house is so small, but it consumes a pretty big spot in the backyard. So when I leave, when I pull my house out to take it to some sort of an event, it leaves a giant hole. So it's small, but it's huge. And it's not just huge for the square footage, it's huge because I've grown into a relationship with these people, and when I'm gone, they notice, which is pretty phenomenal. So in the backyard, I finally get my chance to examine what it means to be alive, what it means to be 40, and now, most recently, 50. 50 years old and living in my friend's backyard. Try explaining that. That's like, I'm single, and, hey. Backyard. Meet my neighbors. There's an awkwardness around that, and it's completely a social construction. We've got these social constructions that define what makes us suitable, appropriate, successful. But I wonder if I might seem a bit dodgy. Exactly. You know what I'm talking about too. Not to point any fingers, even though I just did. And that gives me plenty of space to figure out how am I connected to my world. This is Kiva. This is this summer. So this is this is a slack line that we hooked to her house and tied to my house. And then, she was doing really well, so I turned the sprinkler on, hoping to help her reduce her efforts to my level. But, it's like, how am I? We're curious people, right? You guys are the Curiosity Club. Come on. It's like, how are we related to each other? Beyond, the normal stuff that makes us all human, beyond the stories that we tell about ourselves, it's like, how are we connected? How are you going to take care of me when I get sick? Are you guys going to bring me soup? What can I offer you? We got this moment together on the earth. It's like, how are we being with each other? How are we connected to each other? It's like this great curiosity, because we're not necessarily programmed and grown up to be curious about how I don't even know you. And what's my relationship to you? What do I have to offer? What can you offer me? And so living in the backyard in a house the size of 20 Dorito bags, you start to wonder about this shit. You know, it starts to plague you a little bit. How am I connected to nature? And I'm not talking about the big nature, which, you know, in the Pacific Northwest we are blessed with. You know, we get Mount Hood, Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, we get this amazing river, Willamette, we get the Columbia River, we get salmon. We have all of this wild nature like right up in our grill. And yet, you know, we open our window and what do we see? It's just as much nature as anything else. My dog is a wild animal in her dreams. You can see her chasing like the most feral of animals in her dreams. She's got a big heart for whatever it is she's chasing because she chases it a lot. And you know, I don't even know what these flowers are. I don't. It's some sort of thing in nature. I don't understand what causes the sun to come up in the morning. When I was getting ready for this thing, I came up with a list of things that I'm curious about, and I'm hoping that maybe you guys can help me with. You know, it's like, what makes frost on the window that looks like the finest tooled leather in the universe? That makes it look like those little swords that they put in, you know, sandwiches.
Cocktails.
Yeah, cocktails. You know.
Jack.
What?
Jack.
Jack?
Yeah. Frost.
Jack Frost does it. Exactly.
Or we don't know Jack about that.
Yeah.
We don't know Jack about that. You know what? How many different kinds of rain can there possibly be? You know, I mean, we kind of showed 3 here, but I've counted up to 105 different kinds of rain. There's rain that sounds like grapes hitting the roof. There's rain that sounds like fish hitting the roof. There's rain that sounds like, you know, rock salt hitting the roof. There's rain that feels like it's going to blow my house to one side. There's all of these. How many different kinds of rain can nature possibly dish out before becoming exhausted? Because it certainly works away on me and turning me soggy. And it's like, how many times, here's a really good one. How long can I go before I turn the heat on in my house? How many cubic feet of air are in my house to be heated? How many cubic feet of air are inside me to be heated? You know, how many cubic feet do my feet take up, which are always frozen? You know? How many times a day does the human heart beat? 100,000. How many pounds of liquid are pumped in and out of an instrument, a tiny pump the size of your fist each day? A ton in and out of little dime-sized openings smaller than your thumb. And that keeps us all connected. That keeps us all alive and vital and tethered to each other, whether we want to believe it or not. How many people sleep under the 4th Ave Bridge, just like I am right now? Yeah, so this is from the loft at night. What killed the neighbor's cat? I personally think it was a possum or a raccoon. And that's just because I don't want to believe it was my neighbor, because he is a little creepy. And I'm going to go with nature in this case. How many steps to the mailbox? Because I'm really hoping that I'm going to hear from somebody. And I don't want to do the internet thing. I mean, isn't it so nice anymore, like when we get a piece of paper from somebody that we know actually they touched, they breathed on, they licked? Which leads me to the other thing I've really wondered about as a single woman and living in my neighbor's backyard. How many minutes is the average kiss? You know, how many hours have I spent in my short life?
How many?
I don't know.
You don't have to keep going.
I'm gonna keep going. These are curious. I'm just explaining. I'm curious too. I would like to do some research. How many hours have I spent kissing in my life? You know, it's like, as I've contemplated, like, is this my last night? If this is my last night, what do I want to do? You know, what do I want to do? And how much time have I actually spent being about the business of connecting And not just connecting by kissing, even though that's a really nice way of connecting, but you know, how many minutes are a better measure so that are minutes really the best measure of how I am connected? Is there something else that I should be paying attention to as I lay myself down to die as a metric? Not kissing, not being married, not being partnered, not being even in love with people, but is there another metric that I've missed somewhere that allows me to pay attention to the sun coming up? That allows me to recognize that in the morning in my house, I was just talking to a friend about this, and we were trying to figure out the science around it. You guys are curious, maybe you can tell me. But in the morning, I leave the windows open, and even now, and at about 4:30 in the morning, there's something about the barometric pressure or heat and cold that causes this honey-like air to flow into my house. And it's a little colder than the air inside my house, but it moves in. It's a very visceral feeling of the temperature change and heavier air moving into my house. And it's the beginning of my day. And, you know, is that a metric that I should count? You know, like I walk around and I'm like, 4:30 in the morning, barometric pressure change. Did you notice it this morning? I mean, like, what am I supposed to talk to people about around the water cooler? Hey, did you notice that fog this morning at about 5 o'clock? You know, how do we stay connected, and how do we measure our success based on the measure of our connection to each other? And this is not shit that I would ever even talk about if I hadn't lived in a house the size of a couple of elevator shafts. You know, something, I mean, I wonder if it's the house that made me do it. You know, like even now I'm staying with some friends, and it's just like the roof of the house. I'm downstairs in the basement. The roof is so far away. The moon is so far away. You know, and how am I supposed to know how to dress in the morning if I'm not connected to that? You know? Does this sound so fruity for curious people? Then there's the bigger connection to stuff. This is a little hard to see, but this is everything I own except my car. So this picture was taken in June, and since then I've gotten a pair of boots and some shoes, but everything else is in this picture. I've got some power tools for woodworking. I've got the boat I built years ago, my bed, my entertainment center, which is, as you can see, if I had a circle, it's much larger than my kitchen setup. Just defining priorities. You know, it's like all of a sudden, living small, I've got an opportunity to examine why I buy the things I buy, and why I keep the things I keep. I mean, I've got like 4 forks as the majority. I don't have that much more in my silverware drawer. You know, why only a few pieces of silverware, but I keep this 4-inch window elf. That's this felt thing that a friend of mine's 6-year-old made for me years ago. I love that little window elf. Like, why did the window elf make the cut? But most of my clothes, I mean, I'm a repetitive dresser. You know, it's like, what happened? What went awry? What happened to my culturalization? You know, how come I'm not successful? So, you know, the next thing I want to do is I want to show you guys a really quick video, and many of you have already seen it, but I'm going to see if this works, because this is technology. That didn't work. Hang on. We'll just do that. And then, no, I don't want to do that. How do I get to this? Ooh. Hang on. That's so curious. Here we go. So this is,
You have to slide it over to the other window there.
I have to slide to the left?
Oh, yeah, to your right. Of the whole thing.
I don't know how.
Do you want me to come and help you?
Yeah. There's there's like a whole slide left thing.
Yeah, there you go.
To the right? To the
Right to the right, yeah.
Where's that mouse, David? Is that?
A little more.
There you go.
That's good, right there.
And
Yeah,
now.
and then how do we make it go? You can't hear it very well, but imagine, you know, floaty butterflies and such. Darn kids taking up my front yard. So that's this little video. It's like 2 minutes long, and I encourage you to take a look at it if you feel like it. Do I have to go slide to the left again?
Yeah. I think you just.
Will you make it go?
Okay.
Whoa.
Is this what's gonna?
What's that?
Where can they see that video?
Oh, well, that video is posted at our at.
So are you going?
If you want to see that video, it's posted at. I have a company called Portland Alternative Dwellings. You can see it on our website. It's in the National Building Museum, which is just amazing to me. Amazing to me that something so simple, something so crude, something so rudimentary could make it into the National Building Museum as something of interest, when this is how, you know, most of our family lived not even that long ago. You know, and I think that's probably one of the most humbling things in the building process for me. You know, we're not that far out from knowing how to tie twigs together to make something stand up in the rain. But now it's like an act of God to be able to build a structure that you can live in. And it's an act of God just because a lot of times you have to go through the city, you know, planning for it in order to make it happen. So anyway, an amazing thing happened for me, and this is more where I wanted to include you guys in a broader discussion. And it's like, since I moved into my house 8 years ago, there's been this explosion of interest, and not just from fourth graders who are curious about this cute little dog house, which is what some kid called it, and I had to go out and scold him. As he's walking down, the alley is like right. Cut him off. Yeah, the alley is like right back behind my house, so I hear what people say all the time. And, you know, if they say something nice, I'm in my house. I'm like, but if they say something like, "I think that's a dog house," I'm like out the door and I'm like, that happened to be my house, and you will bring your entire class over here to look at it. So, I mean, there has been this really curious, you know, explosion of interest in little houses. And there are other people here that actually already have little houses and are living in little houses. And, you know, the cool thing is that trend toward little houses, and I don't mean that little houses are this, like, positive solution for homelessness, for hardness of heart that we have for so many populations that are around us right now. I mean, I'm going to talk to the two different women's correctional facilities in Washington next month, and it's like, what do I have to tell people who are incarcerated in a space the size of my house that's beautiful? How can I encourage them to start to look at their jail cell as palatial.
Going around the front door.
Yeah, exactly. I have a front door. I have choice in all of this. So, I don't mean to sound like little houses are a solution to these bigger, larger problems that we need to address, but they offer something, and I think it's because inside all of us, every single day, is the first grader who's curious about what their potential is, curious about what their place is and how they belong in the world, and curious about how they can get away with living in a little house and not get, trounced by societal norms, maybe. The tax man. Yeah. So, from that, through Portland Alternative Dwellings, it's like we've been able to design, and, Katie the carpenter is in the back of the room, and she built this. It's like this is 54 square feet, and it's plenty of space if your demands are really low. Again, there's no running water. It creates a space, the sanctuary that you wanted, the chicken coop that I wanted, but really, really nice. The boat. When I was building my little house, that same year, my father, who lives in Missouri, central United States, he bought a 25-foot sailboat out of Sacramento, a beautiful seafaring ship to drag back to Missouri without a real clear understanding of kind of what that was, but he always wanted to be a sailor. He kind of likened himself to Ernest Hemingway, So all of a sudden these little spaces can become the sanctuary and become the placement that you wanted. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to live in them, but they certainly create a space that you want. This is like the grounding rod for my friend Gina. So she travels all over the world, mostly to really horrible places. For her work, she works for the International Relief Council. So she'll go to the Congo, then she'll go to northern Uganda, then she'll go to Sudan, then she'll go to Haiti, and be confronted with what most of the world really lives like. And so when she does come back to Portland, she doesn't need much, but she wants a place to call home. And so her little house offers her that. This is Christopher and Melissa's house. They're both amazing artists. They live up in Seattle. And they designed and built this little house in order to accommodate the fact that they want most of their income to go toward their art. They are amazing artists, and this allows them to do. And this is beautiful. I mean, this looks like a piece of furniture to me. Their kitchen looks like a piece of furniture to me, and it's just this space that accommodates their interests and their desires without a real consideration. And this is the thing that a lot of us lock into if we ever buy a house. We need to buy a house that can accommodate whoever comes after. It's a disposable item that somebody else will occupy when we're gone, when we're ready to sell. And all of a sudden, Christopher and Melissa, my house, Gina's house. Oh, you are so I'm saying profound things here. This is a house that my friend Abel built up in Olympia. And, when you walk into this place, you feel like you're in the womb. I said fallopian tube the last time. That just felt right. Being childless, I didn't really put that together until much later. So now I'm saying womb. Everything is like soft and brown. It can actually hold you. So ultimately, we create these spaces to accommodate, kind of where we are today, with the idea that, because they're built on wheels, they're not disposable anymore. Our lives change so dramatically anymore. It's like, I'm in Portland today, but if my parents get sick, I'm going to move back to Kansas City and be able to caretake them, because I absolutely want to be standing there when they take their last breath. You know, I live in Olympia, Washington right now, in a backyard that can accommodate my last breath. You know, it's like I didn't mean to design it that way, but it totally worked that way. You know, I live in a space that has enough connection for me that I don't want to go anywhere. I built a house on wheels and I don't want to go anywhere. You know? So that's all I got to say to you guys. I wish I had a way of communicating what it means to wake up in my little house and smell the same smell as when I'm out on one of my favorite hikes, not even that far from my house, through a cedar and fir forest. You know, I get that every day, and you know you can't bring that into your life and not be changed by that. And so, as maybe opposite of our cultural norms as that may seem, to go small, to go as a now 50-year-old living in somebody else's backyard, you know, that I'm unmarried, childless, living in somebody's backyard. I work part-time at a state job, you know, not necessarily the pinnacle of success that we champion so easily in our culture. So how can I wake up in the morning? I get to wake up to the smell of cedar. I get to wake up to that barometric pressure change that happens at 4:30 in the morning. 4:30 in the morning, which is the most common hour that people die. It's the most common moment that the raccoons waddle back down the nature trail into this essentially a stormwater drainage. I like to call it the nature preserve, but it's the green belt that was built after the development happened, you know. And so I wish I had a way of communicating that, but there really isn't a way to do that. Other than tonight, if you go home and you're able to take a shower, I want to invite you guys to just stand in the shower with your ears plugged and let the water bash you in the head. And you'll get a sense of what it sounds like when the storms blow in and nature is once again saying, we're no different. We're just alike. We're all the same here. The rain falls on you just like it falls on the guy who's living under the Broadway Bridge or the Fourth Ave Bridge up in Olympia. You know, it's like we're all the same. We share this moment, you know, and it's a gift. And it's a really awesome way to reprogram yourself. You know, so can't think of anything else to say. I want to invite you guys if you have any questions for me. I guess the other thing I just wanted to I've talked so much about myself, but I guess the reason I do that is because I'm no different. There's so many other people right now who are building little houses, who are interested in little houses, who are interested in reprogramming their life, regardless of the little house. Inside all of us, there's this huge desire to belong, to feel well placed, to feel at home. And it doesn't have to look like a little pointy roofed house or a chicken coop or a tree. You know, we can find that inside every single moment of our day. But anyway, okay, sorry. Blah, blah, blah.
We have such serenity now because of this house. Now I want to hear about what was going through your head when you were building it. Because I know that making things, and even when they're, you know, small, like this house, just takes such a long time, especially when it's the first time that you've done it, and then just the kind of hours go by and you're working and you have this like
Well, I'm curious. That's a really good question. So, you know, the question is like, what was going through my mind? I want to know, out of all of you guys who are here, how many of you would call yourself a carpenter? So, yeah. Could you build a little house? Easy? Easy? Nice and easy?
hired.
Yeah. Can I get your name later? I mean, the thing is that, you know, as far as understanding what was going through my mind, is that I am no carpenter. I built a little house, I built a boat, I have some power tools, but I would never call myself a carpenter. Yeah.
Relating to that, one of the things I find every time I build something, the second one would be really good, but I end up living with the first prototype.
Right.
It's got all the mistakes, all the pieces are patched together by cutting foot short or whatever.
Right.
So do you live with a lot of that?
Oh, I do, but the cool thing is I started a company to tell other people how to do it better. So the cool thing is that, you know, I get to live in ecstasy every time there, you know, there's a progression. You know, my house is okay, the next one, the house you build is going to be 10,000 times better. The house you guys live in is better than mine. You know, I mean, we learn from each other as we go. You know, we get an opportunity to learn how we would do things better or differently every time we build. And so, you know, my floor is under insulated. You know, I wish there was more insulation in the floor. I wish I had paid attention even before I moved into the backyard on what it was going to feel like 10 years down the road to still be living in a little house. You know, like, would it change anything? No. Would I add more insulation to the floor? Yeah. You know, and as far as the building process goes, you know, I absolutely felt overwhelmed. The cool thing is that I had friends right around the corner. Joan and her partner Rita lived literally right around the corner, and I had a carpenter that lived down the street. I had amazing passerbys. People who were really eager to tell me what to do. You know, people that saw, you know, like as one guy said, a little lady on a ladder, you know, willing to like this guy pulled over one day and helped me put a skylight in just because he was afraid that I was not being safe, standing on a ladder in flip-flops and cutoffs, carrying a 50-pound skylight up the ladder. You know, yeah, exactly. I mean, there were definitely many mistakes that were made. The cool thing is I was willing to make them, and I learned about myself that way. You know, I mean, you guys are the Curiosity Club. You know that the best way to deal with your curiosity is to learn, and you don't learn without discovering a different way to learn that would be less dangerous next time. Which you may be thinking right now as I'm standing in front of you talking about little houses. But, you know, we learn by being, our curiosity leads us into situations that should scare us sometimes. And if we're not afraid, then maybe we're not taking a bite out of life the way we should. Yeah?
Have you ever considered moving to a prairie? Just temporarily.
Getting away from town?
No, I'm talking about just so you can say you live in a little house
On the prairie?
I would.
I think that's a really good point, and a point well taken. I've thought the same thing about driving my house through a patch of blackberry bushes. So I can say I'm, you know, in a little house on the berry. Yeah, good question. Yeah.
I'm curious, sort of what sort of freedoms you've gotten to since, like, you've moved beyond working towards getting a house or building a house. You know,
Oh, okay. So, really good question. Yeah, I mean, the benefits of living in a house like this. This is my friend Tammy and Logan's house as we're driving it from Portland to Northern California, where they live now. I don't have debt. I own a space that can hold me until I die, and it's the space I want to be in. You know, I love my house, so no debt. All of my utility bills are $8 a month. You know, I am a part of family without having to endure teenagers. You know, I am a part of a family in all of the absolute best ways that challenge me to exercise my courage sometimes by staying. You know, I mean, I think we're really lucky if we are in relationships that sometimes make us wonder whether or not we're in the right place. And so, you know, as an unmarried, unpartnered, you know, childless 50-year-old, you know, I get a chance to exercise true courage in relationship. Because sometimes I want more trees in the backyard. Sometimes I don't want to put up with Kellen kicking the frickin' soccer ball against my house for hours. You know, I don't want to have to deal with what it feels like to have to explain myself to people I don't know. I don't like having to justify, like I just did this interview, this was like 2 weeks ago with 2020, the ABC show, and it's like, they were like, well, how does that go? And I'm like, how does what go? Well, how does it go, like with, you know, how do you feel? And I'm like, I feel great. And they're like, I'm living in a space smaller than a storage unit. I'm living in a space smaller than a parking spot. I'm living in a space that doesn't accommodate Black Friday or Cyber Monday. You know, I'm living in a space that doesn't accommodate Thanksgiving dinner. Please, all of you, come to my house for Thanksgiving dinner. And, you know, does that make me successful, or does that make me a marginalized U.S. citizen, just like the other 70% of the marginalized U.S. citizenship? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I guess it's more of a statement than a question.
Thank you, because that's all I've been offering. Thank God.
I just find it funny, like, for myself, how when I start out, because you were talking about how, when you were answering the question about how you make a bunch of mistakes and the progressively gets better, but you live with the mistakes that you made the first time, and that's okay. But how true that is, because I notice that the biggest hurdle for myself, because I tend to get so obsessed with all the little details of the things I do, and I've had jobs in the past and I do now, where I create a lot of stuff, and I get hung up in, I don't get hung up at my job, but in my personal life, because I'm so obsessed at my job or wherever. So in my personal life, I get so hung up with the little details of making something exactly how I think it should be, that it keeps me sometimes from completing these things that make me feel really good. And I find that once I'm on the other side, that I actually am happier with all of the mistakes I made. But it's so funny because that's also the biggest hurdle.
Right.
So I'm so happy about, like, oh, that's where I screwed up and had to, like, splice this in, and, like, oh, that was a hilarious story, and, like, what a piece of shit. And I love it. You know?
Exactly.
Every single time I set out to do something, I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna totally mess this up. This totally sucks.
That's totally how I felt 5 minutes before I walked in here tonight. Welcome to my world. I mean, while I was building my house, I lost 3 fingernails. I glued my hair to the house and lost part of my ponytail. I lost a lot of friends because I was busy and myopically focused on all I'm going to do is build, you know, and I didn't lose them. They were just waiting for me to, like, pull my head out of the house. And, you know, I mean, that's the cool thing about forcing yourself out onto, there's this image that, you know, up in Olympia we have some amazing climbers, and right around the corner from me is Willie Unsold's family. Willie Unsold was one of the first people to climb Everest in 1963, and he tells this story about, you know, walking along this cornice. So there's this big, you know, wind-driven snow cornice up very, very high. If he takes a misstep and falls to his left, it's only 2,000 feet down. If he takes a step and falls to his right, he only falls 3,000 square feet. And each step, he talks about it being like one step closer to just going home and having a cold beer, one step closer to the dream of completing his project and just being done. You know, the hope of getting out of this situation alive. And so, you know, we get these little adventures all the time if we invite them. And it can be building a house, it can be challenging yourself to fall in love, it can be raising kids, it can be taking on a new project like a reading school program. I mean, it can be, there are all of these things where we get to be on that knife ridge walk. But, you know, we don't get encouraged to do that so much. I mean, we actually get more encouragement to play it safe And you know, the Knife Ridge Walk that you get to play around on is that, you know, next month can you make the mortgage if you break your back? Next month can you pay your utility bill if you lost your job? You know, is your girlfriend gonna leave you because you can't find a job and you're starting to get depressed and that's all you see in front of you? You know, so there are these opportunities to take on these adventures. And, you know, letting go of our debt or letting go of the path that other people would encourage us to take gives us a capacity. I mean, I think that's one thing that I've felt since I moved into my little house is like, all of a sudden, oh, I want to start a business, you know, and we'll build little houses and we'll design and we'll do workshops and, you know, and then I'll spend every weekend trying to figure out who I can go talk to about little houses, you know, and, you know, I'll write a book and I'll, you know, there are all of these things that I suddenly have a capacity for that I didn't necessarily have the capacity for before. Yeah.
I was gonna say.
Well, where are you going to stay?
Aren't you curious now?
I'm so curious.
Well, I'm from the Southwester. It's a historic vintage travel trailer resort.
Yeah.
Long Beach Peninsula, and I've always really liked vintage travel trailers. Kind of not really knowing
You're so
why
weird.
exactly. They do the damage.
Power to the people.
But they're it's kind of interesting because like their history is really interesting to me because it was like the height of like modernity and like luxury and opulence to be able to afford basically slightly larger than a tiny house, but basically a tiny house that is well crafted and
Right.
has a lot of birch and stuff inside.
Right.
Anyway, but and then to see, so it's interesting like historically to see how it kind of went up and then it went down, and now like mobile living is really looked down upon, or
Right.
you know, went through a period of being looked down upon, and then with the tiny house movement, it seems like it's this opportunity to re-examine some of those like structures and spaces and how people envision spaces,
Right.
and there's like a opportunity for like a great synergy to happen in this way. But,
Right.
so I came here thinking about that and having thought about that first, and you know,
Right.
whatever, being curious about it. But as I'm listening to you speak, I'm just really struck by the fact that one of the things that's so special about tiny houses versus these travel trailers, you know, that weren't vintage and being built, is that they were, even though there were a lot of like mom and pop kind of operations building them, they were manufactured by somebody else to be consumed
Right.
in some way by somebody else. And,
Right.
and the tiny house movement seems like it's really, you know, is really characterized by people building their own spaces. And so
Right.
it's like, if you want your little like squirrel den, you can have that, and if you wanted your
The
like
squirrel den.
open whatever, you can, and so that's, and a lot of people here who are like creators and their own fabricators or
Right.
designers are able to like make their own dreams come true, you know,
Right.
so it's really empowering that way.
Right, and I think for me, you know, when I started building, I didn't realize how, you know, we have this institutionalized classism that we all operate by. So, you know, when I was in high school, that was 1,000 million years ago, and even more now, kids are encouraged to go into something like the sciences. Hopefully they'll be good at math. Hopefully they could become an engineer or go into medicine. It's like the last resort is VOTEC. You know, like, oh man, you want to be a what? A carpenter? You want to do metal work? You want to be an electrician? You know, you want to go into the trades? You know, your life is going to be hard. Your back is going to get broken. And then you're going to be replaced by a younger version of yourself. It sounds like a circus, yeah. You know, and so I didn't realize how institutionalized that was in my own education. And the fact that as a woman, certain doors weren't open to me. And also as a middle class child of parents who were well educated, you know, I didn't have an opportunity to pick. You know, I was really pushed toward, you know, if I liked building, then I should become an architectural engineer. Boring. You know? So, you know, trying to dismantle why we make the choices that we make, you know, and why, you know, we feel certain pressures to become something other is where we actually find really fertile ground for our creativity. You know, once we kind of go into that really dark place that says, you know, you should really be something different than who you are. I know you like your little drawings. I know you like playing with wood. I know you like working with your hands. But it's enough of that tomfoolery. You know, time for you to earn a living so you can afford the house, so that you can pay the mortgage, so that you can, you know, get essentially from, in my case, super stressed out and land as a 40-year-old with congestive heart failure. You know, I mean, my heart function has improved and decreased and improved over the last 8 years that I've been in my little house. But I can't tell you how cool it is that I know things that I never knew before. I mean, you guys are the Curiosity Club. I mean, I have at least a dozen photos of different kinds of frost. And I know that frost is formed on the window by dust particles. It can be formed, true that. You know what I mean? Jack, you know what I mean? There's just like, there are things that I know intuitively now about my natural environment that I never would have guessed at before I built my little house, before I challenged myself to be weird. Yeah.
So you talked about your dad buying a boat.
Did I ever finish that story? Because I felt like I was like, whoa.
You might have. I don't know.
I don't think I did.
Well,
It's okay.
now
We're friends
you
here.
can't. So you do you think of your house as a vessel, like as something that gets you somewhere then, or do you think of it as like a refuge, or do you think of it as both, or like talk about it?
I think of house as home.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I know people who travel a lot, and home to them, they can be anywhere as long as they have their backpack with them. As long as nobody takes the comb out of their backpack or their favorite sweater, you know, out of the backpack, they're fine. So, you know, I feel at home for the first time in my life. And I'm rooted to the place where I'm living. And part of that is tied to my friends who gifted me this beautiful spot to live, which is not really that pretty. I mean, it's kind of shoved in a corner and it's denuded of normal vegetation. I mean, they've got those, you know, those kind of like juniper bush tree things that are just like, they start out cone-shaped and they always stay that way. They grow taller and more cone-shaped, but that's all they're ever going to be. You know, and it's just like, but I'm absolutely a part of the west side of Olympia. I know that the west side of Olympia used to have so many bears in it that nobody much wanted to go over there. And then finally, the native population, the first people, kind of pushed the bears out of the way because there was really great oyster harvesting right outside, like up the hill from my house. And then those people were pushed out by the Chinese immigrants that were brought in to build the railroad and to build a lot of the structures in downtown Olympia. Then those people were pushed out by the blue-collar workers that were operating in the shake mills right at the bottom of the hill. And then those people were pushed out in 1960 by the Evergreen students and by the professors at the Evergreen State College. And that has made way for the little houses of Olympia, which populate my neighborhood. We have all kinds of weirdos living over there. So I love that I live in a place that has a history with a bite to it, that still feels just as woolly as when we have bears wandering around, because it's weird, it's different. And Portland is full of that. I mean, you guys are gifted with that, whether you like it or not. You know? So, I mean, I'm at home in a way that I never imagined I would be. And I never imagined it being a vessel that can transport me someplace else other than into my heart and into my environment. I don't imagine moving my house like you would a ship, you know, but when I start to feel tossed and turned by all that weird shit that makes life so interesting, you know, I wait for that 4:30 in the morning when the air shifts and I get this air mass that rolls into my house that reminds me everything is just like it was yesterday. And, you know, I'm a part of a dynamic living system. You know, I'm not like this. I am not a sitter-arounder waiting for the airflow. Okay? I'm not like that. I'm a fidgeter. I'm a doer. I'm a mover. You know, so for me to say that all of that is real, it's like it must be really real. That you guys would probably notice a long time before me because I'm not a noticer of things. You know, so, any other questions or you guys wanna? I mean, I'm curious. Do you live in an Airstream?
Nope.
Do you want to?
I have actually lived, I bought this little tiny Aloha trailer in my backyard and I lived in it for a while.
What did you love about it?
I love that, well actually,
See, now you know how I feel.
Important time in my life, it was like, it was kind of like my cocoon and I needed that.
Had you broken up with somebody you were in between?
A close friend of mine passed away.
Exactly, so you needed sanctuary.
Yeah. But then since then it's been like a graphic arts studio, now it's an acupuncture treatment, the treatment trailer.
The treatment trailer, I love that.
Empty trailer, compared to a thrift store. But it also kind of reminds me of my grandmother, since we're getting personal. And she built,
I'm so curious.
she built this, I don't know how, it's like kind of like half myth, half real. But somehow this was in Israel, somehow her backyard, like there was an L shape in her house and there was this hedge that was woody, but wall, like a lattice, a living wall kind of thing. She built me a little dollhouse in it and I had like a little table with a little tea set. It wasn't a dollhouse, it was a human house. It was like my little playhouse kind of thing. And so it was really cute. So that's like another space that I think of that was like, it just felt like, you know, on this whole huge earth, like this is my one spot where like my tea set is and I can sit down and have tea.
Right.
You
Who
know,
else?
as like this,
Who else lives in a little house? Like, you know, tiny space. Yeah. What do you love about it?
Having Moss and my kitty there, like that makes it home to me. But
it's cozy.
It's very cozy.
Other than my bicycles, I can basically stand in the middle of the house and see everything right now.
Yeah.
And comb. It's like, okay, we need to clean, and 10 minutes later we're done.
So do you feel like that simplification has offered you more of yourself?
Yeah.
More space in my head of, you know,
It was already so busy and now you've got more time to figure that.
What's beyond that? I lived in a little, like in a van with a loft bed. I had 2 dogs and a boyfriend and also in huge houses and just like the psychological difference between how busy and flustered and just sort of distracted I am in a big house that I own and trying to fix everything, keep on top of everything versus cleaning. Yeah, clean.
10 minutes, yeah.
Please tell me you don't need a vacuum. But I kind of want to go back because I remember it maybe a little too idyllically. It was a long time ago, like 20 years, but it was, you know, it was home. It was private. It was enclosed. It was warm. It was cozy. It had my food and my books. And no matter where we went, so it didn't have all those other sources of stress.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've written about, so my house is cold, poorly insulated, design flaw. I'm afraid of the stove that I have, that it's going to burst into flames in the middle of the night and I'm going to be trapped in, you know, the loft, which is, you know, there's no room to run because there's just the one room. Yeah. You know, so my house is cold, but I've said so many times, you know, it's like better to sleep cold than with a knife, you know, which is what I used to do when I lived in my big house and I'd get scared. I'd hear like some sort of an undefined sound, you know, I'd sneak down to the kitchen and get the big kitchen knife you know, and I'd sneak upstairs and I'd slide it between the mattress and the box spring. So I figured, you know, and then when I would finally summon the courage to go down and explore what the sound was, it was always like a tree branch on the window in the bathroom, or, you know, the heater was clicking on and there was like some sort of cellophane on the heater vent for some reason that was clicking, you know. So it's like there was never a real harm or you know, a potential danger. But when you can't see where things are happening, you know, it's like your mind, especially if you've got an overactive imagination like me, you know, it's like all of a sudden it's like somebody's trying to get in. I think they want to steal something. Like, what are they gonna steal? Like my, you know, lumpy futon couch, you know, the TV that I got at Goodwill. You know, are they gonna steal my like popcorn maker? You know, my, you know, what would they possibly want in my house? You know, so. Are we? No, not in my house now. This was a long time ago. I've never been concerned about safety in my house. I can feel if somebody steps on my porch, you know, because I can feel the balance go off somehow, you know, and so I've never been afraid that way. Do you guys have any more questions for me? Yeah.
How does your dog like the tiny house?
She loves it. I mean, I don't know. We haven't had any in-depth conversations about
Well,
it.
you can see how she fits there as opposed to the other. Is she comfortable in her tiny space?
You know, my dog is pretty amazing. She's a pretty compliant dog. She fits in as long as she can shed on everything. You know, whether it's the back of my car or my house or my neighbor's house or my friend's houses, she seems pretty happy.
Does she sleep indoors?
Yeah, I carry her to the loft at night. And
Serious?
oh yeah, the little video, the National Building Museum video, you can see me carrying her up and carrying her down. So you know, at night I kind of scoop her up like an anvil, and you know, in the morning I pull her out of the loft like a barn animal. And you know, so far I've never, you know, chipped a tooth or broken a leg with her. Yeah.
What does your company do? What do you do for work? Like,
so
Portland Alternative.
Yeah, so Portland Alternative Dwellings, you know, we teach workshops. So the idea is there are a lot of do-it-yourselfers out there, and if they're going to build something that they're going to stick on wheels and drag down the highway, let's get them the information that they need in order to do that safely. So that's a part of it. The other thing is, the other big nugget of education is that, you know, we culturally have this idea that we need to have a huge amount of electricity and a huge amount of water to be happy. And that's fine, but kind of understand what those systems mean for where you're going to go. And understand, you know, like if you want to take a 20-minute shower every day, you got to figure out what to do with that wastewater. You know, we're tethered to a utility grid that makes it really important to think forward to those things if you're going to build a little house. So that education and outreach thing is a big part of it. Trying to advocate for little houses inside city planning code. Exactly. Will it ever happen? You know, how can we advocate for better insurance, more permissible codes? How can we advocate for a shift in the cultural norm that would allow you to seem like a normal guy, even though you're living in, you know, a space the size of an area rug? You know, like how can we shift that? And then we do consulting and design work too. And so that's essentially what PAD is all about, is trying to help people wrap their brain around, you know, those things. And we've got some flyers in the back and some business cards if you want to learn more about
what's
PAD.
your website? Just Portland
PAD,
Alternative.
PAD, like Portland Alternative, PAD, tinyhouses.com.
And just one more question. Do you have any issues like driving down the road, like with a house? Do you need extra kind of tough siding or anything on one side?
You need extra stiff. Well, structurally, yeah, you're essentially going to design and build your house like you're living in an earthquake zone in the middle of a hurricane. So the house is engineered to do that. It's screwed and glued together. There are these big tension ties and bolts. Every bit of siding is screwed into place. I mean, you don't want to drag this down the highway and look in your rearview mirror and like yard sale. So it's engineered to do that. But you know, the bigger thing to think about is these are portable, movable, but they're not aerodynamic. So you're going to get about 10 miles to the gallon on whatever big truck you use to pull it. They're super heavy. So unlike an Airstream, which is built very, very light, you're ending up with something that weighs a lot more. Because we're building it out of wood, the engineering is different than you're going to have with an Airstream or a travel trailer. The cool thing is that envelope is made for longer use than a recreational vehicle. You know, it breathes better. There's better moisture control. You're not going to live in the middle of some patchouli stinking mold heap. You know? So, what is it about patchouli is like the incense of choice to hide mold. It happens. So, you know, heavy, non-aerodynamic, portable structures that are great for moving occasionally, you know. And then the other thing you gotta pay attention to is just like the nerve it takes to move, unless you're an over-the-road trucker. You know, it's like the first time I moved my house, I had friends following me, you know, and it's just like we came to the first, you know, highway overpass, and they just backed way you know, I was so tired. It had been 3 months of building. You know, I was just exhausted. So, you know, my take on the impending danger was just to like floor it, floor it, and see what happens. You know? So it takes a lot of nerve to move a little house unless you're used to dragging heavy shit down the road. So.
Have you ever had any gatherings of like a bunch of tiny houses together?
Oh, like the rainbow?
No.
Gatherings? Or maybe like Burning Man? No.
More like these rallies.
Oh, a rally.
Where like say there'd be like 20 to 50 to
You know,
40
I don't
tiny
know
houses,
of.
look at each other's
This
designs
summer.
and share.
Yeah, like look at this.
Yeah.
August, check our website.
I love that idea.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's a splendid idea, and I love the idea of building community with other little house people. The thing that I have run into, and why I haven't moved, I used to move my house a lot. I'd take it to like the Earth Day events, or you know, the sustainability fair, or you know, the local grade school. You know, if they're studying, you know, global climate change or whatever. Is that it takes a huge amount of energy, like emotional energy, and then just gas to move a little house, and it's not rally-esque. I mean, it kind of defies, like, you know, one of the, you know, the things that I really love about going small is that you can be green. You can afford materials in your construction that you wouldn't normally be able to afford, blah, 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 blah. So I don't know that that's happened, but I would love to have a tiny house people gathering with a tent. Yeah. Yes?
I'm just dying to get inside one of these things. How can that happen?
Contact Pat. Pat.
Oh.
Yeah, contact our company and we'll be able to. And there are people sitting right behind you that live in one, and you might be able to make friends and become curious together. So thank you so much, you guys. I appreciate
I just wanted to let everybody know. First, we should give another hand to Dee. Thank you so much. So we return on December 11th, and it's the second annual Curiosity Club alumni party, and everybody here is invited.
Woohoo!
Since we began in 2010, we've had no less than 59 Curiosity Club speakers, which I found hard to believe, but it's true. And each and every one has been insightful, entertaining, and of course incredibly curious. One thing that we always lament is the fact that after each meeting we rarely get more than a few minutes to chat as people make their way out. So we think the ideal solution to this situation is to invite our members, everyone who has spoken or will speak, and anyone who has attended or will attend to come down and exchange ideas over beverages and snacks. We've had an amazing group of speakers, designers, engineers, tinkerers, makers, writers, theorists, open source manufacturing advocates, teachers, a cyborg anthropologist, a historian, a luthier, a pinhole camera maker.
That's crazy.
A knife maker, a one-wheeled motorcycle designer and developer, a chef, an upholsterer, an amateur rocket scientist, an improv comedian, cargo bike builders, butchers, programmers, perfumists, community developers, cryonicists, and artists, and tiny house enthusiasts. And the list goes on with each area of expertise being equally fascinating. So they will be here and just, you can hang out and drink and talk about whatever is on your mind.
And the night gets better as it goes on.
Yeah, totally. We're a little, our group can be a little awkward before being effectively libated. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.